To put it most simply, Rum Gun is a pirate-themed version of old-school Diablo. Is it good? Is it fun? Absolutely! To put this at the forefront of my review, I should go on record to say that it's not really my kind of game. Not that I didn't like its experience, but that I do not really have much experience playing other action RPG twin-stick hack and slashers. I think someone who grew up with Titan Quest or has rocked 2,000 hours into Path of Exile might have differing opinions than I. While I have played many other games and other RPGs, this very specific subgenre has never been something in my wheelhouse. Rum Gun at its earliest was only a diploma project for its creator, the Transylvanian solo developer Borington. It's even built on its own game engine. If you search enough, you can find its old browser-based demo versions on websites like Armor Games. As far as I understand, per desktop release, it's first opened into Steam's Early Access program in 2018. As of August 26, 2024, it has managed to make it as a fully released product. Currently, it sits at an incredibly reasonable $5, which, to be honest, maybe makes me feel like I'm ripping the poor guy off, because as it stands currently I have over 20 hours of game time, and I haven't even peaked in Endgame or finished all of the achievements.
My man once had an affair with a mermaid. I know this is the place he used to visit. Call it a wife's intuition.
One thing to note here is that I think Borington is something of a madman, and I don't mean he's a crazy person in any sort of bad way as much as he seems to have an incredibly strong work ethic, creative integrity, and transparency. An example of what I mean is that I found a bug and was reported to him. With a little bit of contextual information, he was able to push out a patch to fix it within the same day. This is extremely commendable developer behavior in the modern gaming landscape. Besides Rum Gun, he's also put out a science fiction real-time strategy game that looks something like StarCraft named Black Chain, and he has also been working on a retro boomer shooter named Delilah in the background. Now that he's been introduced, I should make note of myself. I'm Scurvy Banana. I make guides, reviews, and offer up my thoughts on piratey video games. If you'd like to keep up with the treasure that's on my horizon, feel free to plunder the sub button. If you have any recommendation on games or videos to produce, feel free to parlay that into the comment section. Thanks. If you'd like to avoid spoilers, feel free to skip ahead, but this is not a very story-heavy game. The focal point, of course, being the gameplay experience. I'll still go ahead and give a very brief explanation of the plot. Our created male or female pirate hero arrives shipless on the sober shore. From there, we are prompted into some sort of chase through the jungles to take down Captain Crawl.
You fool! The ritual has already begun! You cannot stop me!
Who seems to be working on some sort of a devil's blood ritual. Turns out he's trying to enact some sort of eldritch horror existence called the Drunkening, in which case, every happy pirate will spend a whole 7 years drunk. For an unspoken reason, we seem to be against this and use all of our might to viciously destroy anything within our path. The entire story traverses through stereotypically tropical jungles and caves, but of course it branches off into more varied environments like Mughal cities, Dutch colonies, volcanoes, mermaids, weddings, sailors, taverns, and even as far as the literal insides of a demon whale. There's a pretty solid variety here. Side note, a lot of times I hear discussion in pirate game communities about the underutilization of any world area besides the Caribbean. I'll have you know, Rum Gun is set in the Indian Ocean. There you go, now there's a good pirate game in the Indian Ocean. Cool. If you've been watching along, I'm sure you've got a pretty decent idea of the basic ARPG sort of gameplay offered here. You have some slots for equipment like shirt, boot, hat, and a whopping 6 slots for weapon variety. On top of this, you also have a minion summoning slot and even an instrument one too. There are something like 30 different weapon types to use that all play somewhat differently. Certain weapons even have interesting sort of quick time events like guns during a reload, which will buff the next attack. Not only that, but there's a substantial magic system where you apply drunken etchings or sober scratches onto items to enable specials. An example here is Firework being applied to my pistol, which enables the middle mouse click to do an area of effect attack. Another example is Frenzy as applied to my anchor to enable a multi-attack. To further this, there are items that are used to level up weapons and armor, as well as others distinctly for this rune system. And let's not forget the minions, they'll help you fight and whatnot, and if you want to heal them, you can play your instrument. Different instruments play different songs. Leveling up, you'll be presented with a few choices via a RNG system unless you have specifically found special dice items that let you pick from the entire skill tree. This maybe causes a bit of a conundrum due to the stoic campaign structure of the main game. If you don't have any special dice modifiers for this level up system, you are at the mercy of a bad hand via the random nature of this system. If you get handed a bad set of matches to your current playstyle, you have to persevere as there's not an ability to backtrack and overlevel yourself to compensate. By endgame, it is eased up quite a bit, and the treasure hunt endgame mode works through random generation, turning Rum Gun from a story-driven campaign into a more rogue-like experience. I think locking this game mode behind a fully completed campaign is potentially gimping the player base a bit. What I mean is that if it was retooled a bit and launched via the main menu, it could be marketed alongside the campaign. As it sits now, this content exists as an extension of the campaign, but I think that there's enough room for both of them potentially to be sitting side by side, especially considering the RNG nature of the entire level up system, as well as the randomized nature of the treasure hunt mode having overlapping correlation with the whole randomized bit. Now, I can't say if every option in this skill tree is viable and works functionally. It is a very large tree with lots and lots of options, and there are lots and lots of weapons and lots of different spells, and variety is really the king here. Not even just in this, but general mob differences. It's pretty awesome. What I can say is that by the end of the main story, the sort of build I was using that I've been running is built into the pistol and the offhand melee weapon. My pistol shots cause dead enemies to explode. I have a large area of effect pistol attack on cooldown. Whenever enemies get close, I can use my offhand sword to perform the slam spell, which is also a large area of effect. That's probably my favorite thing, is kiting around these huge trains of mobs around trees and broken buildings, and then blowing up all of them at once. Besides that tactic, I had a great time swinging the anchor around at the French, using a beehive as a gun to blast booze zombies with bees, and throwing grenades at sharks. If this sounds monotonous to you, keep in mind that there are even levels that act uniquely besides straightforward hacking and slashing. Guiding an NPC shark child home from bullies, horseback riding to get away from the prison break, several boat battles, a very, very simple stealth-oriented prison break mission. There's cool boss battles, like what I'm probably going to put on screen right now. The Bone Serpent, that one was awesome. In terms of gameplay, the largest detractor, besides the potentially ill-drawn level up, would probably be the boat sequences. The boats themselves control a bit funky, and it takes some time to get used to. After the learning curve, they're pretty okay, but at the start you'll notice they move a real slow or way too fast when you've enabled the boost. Along with this, you're also able to hold a certain button combination to manually control the player character and the boat separately, but I just don't have enough fingers or brain power to manage to be able to put that one into play. Maybe also the game is a bit slow to start. It's a very old school styled experience, thus the older game players will likely not find this to be an issue, but as far as its contemporary competitors, I think it manages to become a much slower burn before you really start to get into the bombastic sequences and swashbuckling action. What I mean is you gotta put in a couple hours of work before you really start to see it pay off. Graphically, I really enjoy its style, though I will say that a large portion of this could be geared toward my personal nostalgia. It really has stylized itself as a game that released 20 years ago, and of course, 20 years ago was some peak video game playing time for me in the developmental years of my childhood and teens. The upside of this low-poly styling is perhaps ease of additional content and the ability to run the game on any hardware. In this aspect, I will note that I did experience a hiccup during the lava environment levels where my frames per second did drop enough for it to be noticeable to me. I think that has something to do with the visual effect that is used to produce the fire effects. Outside of that, no other issues. The music and sound is pretty great. The game features full voice acting, which really helps bring out the characters, and it has a fun soundtrack as well. I think there could be a tad more variety, as by the end of the story, something like 12 hours in, I had consciously noticed, hey, this song is playing again. But the music isn't bad in any way. I do frequently hear the soundtrack playing in my head while I'm trying to go to sleep at night now. Besides the randomized treasure hunt endgame mode, there is a dice rolling minigame and an arena mode. Besides that, you can always manually hop around whichever map you wish to revisit out of the story. A pretty substantial addition is integrated Steam Workshop and a map maker tool built straight into the game. While I haven't seen this utilized much by the community, I believe players could essentially use the map maker to build entire campaigns themselves, and that's very cool. Who knows, maybe a Scurvy Banana Island will be coming to a Steam Workshop near you. This game also does feature a co-op multiplayer mode, however unfortunately I am unable to speak on it as my entire playing experience has been solo, and I have not played with anybody else yet. Hopefully I do that soon. I think I even bought this when it was on sale for even cheaper than the already pocket-changed price point it regularly sits at, and I can say for sure it was a substantial purchase and is worth much, much more. As I said earlier, so far I've managed to put in a solid 20 hours of playtime, and I'm still looking at putting in more. I would love to finish all of the achievements, and potentially try to play through the entire game campaign again in the multiplayer mode, and even I would like to build my own maps to put on the workshop. Overall, this game has a huge amount of swashbuckling fun to be had within it. If you'd like to see a 100% achievement guide pop up from me at some point in the future, let me know in the comments.
Yes, Your Highness.
Fun fact, during the early access, Borington asked community members in his Discord server if they'd like to provide some voices, and I was a contributor. Unfortunately, as per the official release, I don't think any of the voices I did seem to have made it past the cutting room floor, but it was still a pretty fun opportunity to attempt voice acting in any capacity.